Communities, universities, colleges all have a responsibility to fight this poisonous radicalisation of young people's minds.
Met Police counter-terror officers have arrested a man on suspicion of funding Islamic State militants in Syria. The 22-year-old was held in North London. Officers are searching 2 addresses. Ed Miliband has challenged the Prime Minister to back a Labour plan to stop MPs from having more than one job. It follows claims that Jack Straw and Sir Malcolm Rifkind were willing to use their influence in exchange for money. Both deny any wrongdoing. And stay with LBC, where the chair of the Conservative Party, Grant Shapps, will join Sheila to answer your calls in a few moments' time. Firefighters across England are on strike this afternoon in a long-running row with the government over pensions and terms and conditions. Thousands are taking part in a rally at Westminster. LBC's Lorraine Horgan is with them.
Thousands of firefighters marched to Parliament as part of today's No More Lies protest. They claim the public, MPs and firefighters were all misled by the Fire Minister Penny Mordaunt when she made false guarantees. Today they carried banners with photos of her next to the word liar. Firefighters here say they want nothing more than for the government to simply honour the contracts they signed up to and to get back around the discussion table as soon as possible. Lorraine Horgan, LBC at Westminster.
Members of the Fire Brigades Union will start work again tomorrow morning. The Chief Executive of HSBC has apologised in person to MPs over allegations that the bank's Swiss branch helped wealthy customers dodge tax. Stuart Gulliver and Chairman Douglas Flint are appearing before the Treasury Select Committee. He says revelations about the Swiss arm have caused damage to trust and confidence, but insists nothing like this will happen again.
I'd like to put on the record an apology from both myself and from Douglas for the unacceptable events that took place at our private bank in Switzerland in the mid-2000s, which is clearly an apology we'd like to make to you all, to our customers, our shareholders, to the public at large.
Police have released pictures of 7 men as part of an investigation into racist chanting at St Pancras Station. They're believed to have been returning to London a day after Chelsea played Paris Saint-Germain last week. You can see pictures of the men that officers want to speak to at our website, lbc.co.uk. And all professional football in Greece has been suspended. It's part of a crackdown on violence by the Greek government and follows fighting at a match between Olympiacos and Panathinaikos. LBC weather, a mainly dry afternoon in London and the southeast, becoming cloudy and breezy later, a high of 11 Celsius. Some showers in northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, mostly dry in Wales. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Rupert Bartier.
Hello and welcome aboard your East Coast train. Calling at smoked salmon and dill sandwich, chicken tikka masala, Emmental and mushroom croque, and finally stopping at Spanish Cabernet Sauvignon.
With a new complimentary food and drink menu on East Coast trains for first-class travellers and the food bar in Standard, we're pulling out all the stops to make you feel at home. So next time you need to travel, why not try it the East Coast Trains way? Book today at eastcoast.co.uk.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Shelagh Fogarty. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Shelagh Fogarty on LBC.
Hello, good afternoon to you. Well, I know what I want to ask him, but what do you want to ask him? The Conservative Party Chairman, Grant Shapps, is here for the next 45 minutes or so here on LBC. 0345 6060 973. He's just had to be prompted to put his headphones on so we can talk to you. It's all going so well. 84850 is the number to text. You can tweet at LBC. I'm going to cover things like second jobs for MPs. That's been in the news. The Manchester Health story we talked about earlier on, merging social care and healthcare. Manchester due to get Greater Manchester, due to get power over that. We can talk about pensioner benefits if you like, Ukraine, international affairs as well. And anything else you want to put to the Conservative Party Chairman, Grant Shapps. Hello, good afternoon to you.
Hello.
Well, where do we begin? Let's begin on second jobs because, and you'll know what I'm going to raise, Mr. Green. You know that having 2 working lives, in a sense, an MP or a candidate in an election, and private businesses, it can come across as very tricky, and it did for you when you operated under a different name.
No, well, just to be clear, that was before I was an MP,
I know,
so not really.
But during an election campaign?
I mean, only in as much as... I wrote under a pen name, as many people have in the past. The only difference is I actually put my actual name and the pen name next to each other, which is why people know about it.
Okay.
And it was before I came into politics many years ago. But also, my main business was setting up a printing company, which I set up 24 years ago, which is still going to this day. And I actually would say very strongly, I think that having had experience in business, having set up a printing company, hired people, had the responsibility of them going home, pay their mortgages, all those things make you much more capable of understanding what it's like when we talk about hardworking taxpayers setting up businesses and, doing the things which create jobs in this country. And I don't think there's any real room in this country for full-time, professional politicians who've never done anything else in their life. And basically, Ed Miliband's now pushing this line, we must ban every other interest. Well, Ed Miliband's never done anything apart from politics. Who is he to lecture people about how to go about their lives?
He's not the only one in the Commons, and an increasing number as well.
Well, I think that he's not the only one by any extent. There are other people, including quite prominent people. But if you attack business, which is what Ed Miliband spends his time doing, all those people who work hard and create their own companies and employ people and create the wealth in this country, if you attack business, which he seems to spend all his time doing, and you've never ever done anything else but politics, then frankly I don't see why you should be listened to. That is not the solution. The solution is to have people in Parliament who are from lots of different backgrounds, lots of different interests, and can bring experience.
And I think lots of people would agree with you on that. I think the difficulty that people have when they see what they saw with Sir Malcolm Rifkind and Jack Straw, and possibly even your decision to separate your business and political life by using a different name, a pen name,
before going into politics.
Yes, I understand, but still, you were still active enough in politics to need to separate the politics from the business. They might regard it as a shifty move. Just say who you are and say that you do both.
Well, you're absolutely right to have complete transparency. So if you're in business, if you are a doctor, a dentist, if you're working for the army, which a number of my colleagues do in Parliament, then of course you should be transparent. You have to declare all of that, and that's absolutely straightforward, the right thing to do. So this is two different arguments. Absolutely no issue with people being completely transparent. If you are a GP and you're an MP, what is wrong with being able to bring that experience into the House? As long as you declare it, as long as people can see where any conflict might come up, the idea that we should have 650 professional politicians from Hampstead like Marxist Ed Miliband, I think, is preposterous.
But you're not really answering the question that I'm putting to you, which is that you yourself, and look at the Rifkind Straw situation, it was about saying, yes, I'm an MP here, but over here I'm somewhat, literally in your case, I'm someone else. I'm not just something else doing something else.
Hold on, let me just get this absolutely clear.
I know it wasn't when you were an MP, sorry,
okay.
That was my mistake. But you were campaigning to be an MP, and I don't want to spend all the time on this, but you are constantly deflecting it onto what you think of Ed Miliband's views on...
I thought the discussion here was second jobs whilst people are MPs. So to be absolutely clear, I don't have a second job and have never had a second job whilst being an MP. End of story. What we're talking about, though, is whether you should allow people to have that experience of the outside world whilst they are also politicians. And I would argue that you get a better quality of MP if you have people who are in the army, people who are in medicine, people who have outside experience, perhaps still run their own family, small business. Those things are fantastic experiences for people in Parliament, and we shouldn't shun that. We should have more of it, and only somebody who's never had any life at all, even before becoming an MP, outside politics, would think that it was a good idea not to have that experience in Parliament.
Two big Conservative figures, Lords Lawson and Michael Heseltine, said that they don't think an MP's job is a full-time job, but there will be a lot of constituents and voters who disagree strongly with that and say that it should be. You clearly would towards what they think, but lots of people wouldn't. Alex is calling from Cambridgeshire. Alex.
Hi, I just wanted to ask about Sir Malcolm Rifkind standing down, and if you have any ideas who'll be replacing him at all, especially kind of how likely it is it's going to be a female candidate.
Hi, Alex. Well, no, I don't know at this stage, but it will be a pretty fast process because obviously the election is coming up. It's only 71 days away. Malcolm Rifkind has stood down very promptly, which I think is at least to his credit. And now the selection process will take place. There are sort of truncated processes in place because we're so close to an election. But the way these things work is the local Conservative Association will come in. There'll be a discussion about it. They'll shortlist some people who'll apply in the next few days, and then they'll put that to a special general meeting. So I don't know, because that special general meeting will have to make those decisions about exactly who is selected. But I've seen lots of rumours in the newspaper. I think you can probably dismiss most of them, because the truth is that most of them probably aren't even interested or haven't been asked.
Satisfied with that, Alex? Go on.
I was just wondering as well, just kind of more generally, obviously I'm a woman myself, I'm just wondering what you're doing to get more people, more women and ethnic minorities into the Commons. Because, I mean, I actually live, I don't know if you know Cambridgeshire at all, I live in Duxford, which is in South Cambridgeshire.
Yeah, I know Duxford from the airfield there, isn't there?
Yeah, we selected our MP, or our candidate, next year. And I think I was told by people that all the women all the candidates on the list were female, and that's something I'm not a member of any party or anything, but I was quite impressed, and especially because they told me that they didn't even do it deliberately.
So, well, yeah, so I mean, I can tell you what I've been doing since I've been chairman of the Conservative Party the last 2.5 years. What I've done is to make sure that our candidates better reflect the country as it is. And that's all we want to do. We want to make sure that we are reflective of Great Britain as it is today. So clearly, half the population's female. We should have many more female MPs. I think we had maybe last election 22 or 24%, something like that.
You had a front bench full of them today at Prime Minister's Questions. We know your
sat
game.
there, you can see.
Yeah.
But look, there aren't enough in Parliament. But we had candidates last time, 24%. This time we're going to have over a third. So we've got like a good substantial increase. And I hope by next election we'll have about half. And also on people from different minority backgrounds. This time, for example, in the seats that we're most likely to win, perhaps the retirement seats, you might say, where we've got Conservatives in place and they're standing down, most likely to win them. We've got, I think, nearly 20% of those candidates are from black or minority ethnic backgrounds. So, like, much more representative of the country as it is today. And so the Conservative Party in that way, but also, just going back to our previous conversation, Sheila, in terms of backgrounds. So we've got a postie, we've got people who are, teachers, we've got people from social care, we've got people from business, we've got a really good spread of candidates. But
interestingly, when people like Sir Malcolm Rifkind and Jack Straw are asked about new work, they don't want to be postmen. They don't want to, that's not what they go for. They go for the $5,000 a day stuff, don't they?
Well, look,
Which doesn't play well for either party.
Well, I think we can talk about people who were selected 2-3 decades ago, I imagine, quite a long time ago, and we can talk about how people
politics, they're in the bin now.
Well, I can talk about how people have been selected whilst I've been chairman for the last 2.5 years, and I've just gone out my way to sort of try to make sure that we're selecting people who represent the community as it is. And as Alex would point out, half the community is women. Now, what we don't do in the Conservative Party is force all women shortlists through by not allowing constituencies to consider anyone but a woman. I think that is unproductive. But what we do is make sure that the associations understand the profile of their own constituency. And it turns out in every constituency about half the people are women.
But you do have at least one MP, Andrew Rossendale, who thinks that women can't have a child, take maternity leave and have a cabinet post at the same time.
Well, you won't be surprised to hear me say I think it's complete and utter nonsense.
That's a second job, isn't it? Having a child.
I don't think it
or a first job.
Do we seriously only want politicians whose job is only politics and they're not allowed to have families? I mean, look, I have a family, I have 3 kids. I think that probably the knowledge of what goes on, that my twins go to school in our local community in Welland Hatfield. I think the knowledge of what goes on in your community, because you have children, they were born in the hospital, they go to the school, all that stuff.
Its own learning curve.
Oh my goodness! Like, why would you ever want to stop politicians from having families and other interests?
You're clear on that. Dan from Barnet. Hello, Dan.
Hello there.
Hi. What do you want to ask Grant Shapps?
Just whether he thought that there might be implications for a return to the expenses problem if the second job element is removed, or any kind of outside income, when you have people like, say, Ed Miliband, whose salary, obviously as leader of the opposition, $135,000, yet feels OK to claim £12,000 housing expense to live in the constituency he represents.
Well, look, I think the best thing you can do with expenses, I mean, that spectre of that terrible expenses scandal and abuse, I think the best thing you can do with expenses is actually what has happened, which is make it completely transparent. Make people account for every penny. Put the whole thing up online so people can have a look at it, and make sure that everyone sees not just what the salary is, which is obviously public anyway, but actually how you spend taxpayers' money, so they can see that it is only being spent in the right ways. And that it's almost like the disinfectant of sunlight on expenses. And I think actually by and large the last few years that has worked, because the whole issue's disappeared a bit. The question about what do you do next, look, I just think make the whole thing transparent. I was in Parliament during that whole expenses scandal. I represent a constituency not a million miles away, but I was the first MP from that constituency not to have a second home. I didn't think it was necessary, and obviously when the expenses scandal was broke, I was very
Hertfordshire and London. You were very relieved that you hadn't.
That was my point entirely. And when the expenses scandal broke, I was doubly pleased to have.
Dan, can I ask you on second jobs for MPs? What would you prefer from your own constituency MP? Would you prefer he or she just fully concentrated on being a constituency MP, or would you be happy if they had business concerns or a part-time job as a, I don't know, teacher somewhere, or I don't know, whatever job?
Well, for me specifically, obviously we've got Teresa Villiers, so she's Northern Ireland Secretary, so she has that second role. But wider, I don't really see that there's a problem as long as there's no conflict, because, say with the unions issue, it's not so much that they're paid by them, it's if they're espousing those views for that reason, then that would be the sort of black mark for me.
I think actually ultimately the judgment should be made by constituents, because we do a job. If they don't like it, they've got in 71 days they can chuck us out. Technically I have a second job, which is being chairman of the Conservative Party. My constituents, I think I work harder and longer hours for them than ever, but they'll make that decision, and if they can come to their own conclusion. Okay,
thanks for now. We'll come back to Grant Shapps in just 1 second after the travel news, and thanks to Dan for his call. Dan in Barnet. 0345 606 0973 if you want to talk to the Tory Party chairman Grant Shapps. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. It's 17 minutes past 3.
I'm Joanne Webb in the LBC Travel Centre. Well, it's very busy on the M3 southbound at the M25 junction, and that was after a car was on fire. One lane is still closed for recovery. On the M23 on the Surrey stretch, very busy in both directions between junctions 9 at Gatwick Airport and the M25, and that's because the emergency roadworks still taking place after that car overturned earlier. On the Kent stretch of the M25, that's very busy anti-clockwise at the Dartford Tunnel. Very busy northbound in London to the Blackwall Tunnel because a car's broken down. There's a queue from the Woolwich Road flyover. Staying in London, very busy on all approaches to Parliament Square because of a demonstration that was taking place earlier. It's now finished. It's moved on, but still very slow on all approaches. In Staffordshire, the M6 hardly moving at all southbound between junctions 13 at Stafford South and junction 12 at Gailey, and that's because a car's broken down and one lane is closed for recovery. But it's still taking over half an hour to get through that queue. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in half an hour.
This is LBC.
So sorry.
Make sure you get a perfectly balanced performance. Michelin tyres bring safety, longevity and fuel efficiency factors together in one tyre. And throughout February, we at QuickFit are offering 25% off them. So for all-round total performance, ask for Michelin tyres at any of our QuickFit centres today. Offer available in-store only. Terms and conditions apply.
Imagine that feeling. The blast of champagne corks hitting the ceiling. Lots of noughts on the cheque you're receiving. A penny for your thoughts. A ticket for your dreams. Tonight it's a lotto rollover. Whatever your dream, Play makes it possible. Get your ticket now. Games, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The Wickes sale must end Monday, 2nd of March. So get your projects moving with up to 40% off all flooring. Like Canadian Elm laminate flooring. Was $12.99 per metre squared, now $7.79 per metre squared. And easy ways to shop, like our free 3-hour click and collect service. Visit Wickes online or in-store today and get your projects off to a flying start. It's got our name on it. Wickes. Offer excludes PTG and chipboard. For T's and C's, visit wickes.co.uk.
Worrying about your kids is just part of being a parent. Will they do well in school? Will they come home safe? Will they ever develop a decent taste in music? But when it comes to their driving, Ingenie encourage young people to drive safely with discounts on their car insurance. So your only worries are their dress sense, choice of partner, any piercings or tattoos, whether they eat enough.
Ingenie customers can save up to 21% on their car insurance just for driving well. See how much you could save at Ingenie.com. Ingenie, insurance for 17 to 25s. Drive well, pay less.
With lots of space, intelligent safety systems and low fuel consumption, the Skoda Rapid Spaceback is pretty impressive. And if you buy yours before the 31st of March, we'll give you £2,500 minimum part exchange on your old car. So don't miss out. Make a rapid visit to your Skoda retailer today. Part exchange available on selected new Skoda models with Solutions Personal Contract Plan. Deposit from 0 to 30% subject to underwriting. £2,500 minimum part exchange on vehicles with 1 month valid MOT registered with the current owner for at least 3 months. Terms and conditions apply.
You can hear what I have to say on LBC. Now you can read it too. I'm James O'Brien, and do make sure you pick up the new series of books from LBC's presenters. In mine, I explain how everybody would be happier if we stopped obsessing about immigration and focused on the facts instead of the feelings. If we ignored the invitations to get angry and bitter and bilious that appear to be bombarding us from every quarter at the moment. Loathe Thy Neighbour, the new LBC book from me, James O'Brien.
Pick up your copy now from Foyles Bookshops or at foyles.co.uk for the special price of just $6.99. For more details, go to lbc.co.uk.
The Conservative Party Chairman Grant Shapps is here with me in the studios here at LBC. The number to call 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. Valerie is called from Boreham Wood. Hi, Valerie.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, Valerie. How are you?
You're not too bad, not too bad. I did have a question, and I do have a question.
Good.
Which is, I live close enough to London where I have to commute in every day, and that's where my jobs are. And I'm in the fortunate position of being self-employed. But to do what I enjoy, I don't get paid an awful lot of money. To live in London is exorbitantly expensive, and the benefit caps that have been brought in, across the board from, the northern borders all the way down to places like, Devon and the whole of the UK. People that live in London pay a premium to live in London. Our wages aren't going up. Nothing's going up. Surely there must be a way to bring a benefit cap in, absolutely, but in a like-for-like basis. The people down here in London, we pay 3 times as much rent as the people that live in Manchester. How can it be right to across the board, cut people's benefits? I'm not on benefit. I'm very fortunate that I'm literally just above that line where I would be eligible for benefits.
So you're talking about wanting a kind of London waiting, Valerie, to be taken into consideration?
To take into consideration that to pay £500 in Manchester for a 3-bedroom house and to pay £1,500 a month in London to rent a 3-bedroom house, there's a discrepancy there. Gone are the days where you earn more money to live and work in London. Everybody is getting less money month by month. Okay. You can tweet on as much as you like about the fact that things are getting better. People aren't seeing things get better. I had 3 companies go out of business last year owing me £27,000. That's part of my budget completely out the window. Do I get any help? No. I don't get any help for the fact that I don't get the money.
All right, should we press pause and let Grant Shapps have a go, and then we'll come back to you, Valerie.
Hi, Valerie. First of all, if you're Boreham Wood, you're not a million miles from my Welland Hatfield constituency, so I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of like the London waiting or the lack of when you're just outside of London, plus travel time if you're going in. And there's a massive discrepancy in costs of living and all the rest of it, which kind of spills over the rest of the southeast as well. So I totally get your point. You asked very specifically why we introduced like a national cap for welfare. This is the £26,000 maximum that you can earn through welfare, in other words, rather than working. And that's because we put in a cap that we thought was the maximum, which would be manageable even in London.
And that's coming down to 23 if you get into power
we win
again.
the next election, we'll bring it down to 23,000. Bear in mind, of course, that if you had to earn that money, you would have to pay tax from your gross earnings. So these are both numbers of people earning £30,000. I think it's still, most people would say, yeah, that's kind of fair enough and still on the high side. But you're right, the housing costs, etc., are very difficult. And I also think you're right. But we didn't want to introduce, sorry, just to fully answer your question. Once you start to get into kind of lots of regional variations. You complicate a simple principle that no one should earn over a certain amount. But in fact, the amount that you receive in, for example, housing benefit, what's called local housing allowance, if you live in London and elsewhere, does vary on a very, very localised basis within the borough that you live in. So there is some localisation within that. And I mean, the other point you raise is the whole kind of issue of, you know, how of salaries, the fact they're not going up fast enough, cost of living, etc. And you're right. Look, we had like the biggest bust in 100 years in that Great Recession, and it takes a long time to recover from those things. But in the last 4 months, the data shows that earnings have overall, obviously, this can't speak to your individual circumstances, Valerie, but overall salaries have finally started rising quite a lot faster than a very low rate of inflation, which is only 0.3%, the lowest in all of our lifetimes. And that does mean that if we carry on, then people will start to feel the benefits. And I guess in 70 days' time, people are going to have a choice. And my argument would be, let's finish off the job. You're right, it's fragile. Not everyone's feeling the benefit by any means, but let's finish the job so everyone does.
But before we hear from Valerie again, you know, you say people are beginning to feel it and more people will begin to feel it. And yet just from Valerie there, working 3 jobs, being owed a lot of money from clients who've gone bust themselves. And we had people on my programme at the end of last week, I think it was, a large number of people telling us they worked 60 hours a week, 50 hours a week, and were still not making ends meet.
Well, I gather from what Valerie was saying, we can ask her in a second, I guess, if she's still there,
Hi,
that she probably is using...
I'm still here.
Great. So, Valerie, what I'm thinking is you're probably, from your description, you're probably in part self-employed or have your own business if people have gone bust or not paid you and owed you money. And actually...
Absolutely. You try... Yeah, but see, I hear what you're saying. And you're talking about this massive benefits cap that's 26 coming down to 23. But if you're working, and most people that get some form of benefit do work for a living, you cannot get housing benefit if you're earning more than £13,000 a year. So if you're living in London and your rent is £12,500 a year, you're not eligible for very much at all.
Yes.
And that's the difference between being up north and being down south. It's that fact that the cost of living is so much higher that you've put a cap in for housing benefit, for this, for that really affects people who are trying so hard. They work 40, 50, 60 hours a week in 0-hour contracts, and they get absolutely nothing for the effort of going out to work. They're worse off than people that are on benefits.
So my big argument is, if we want to sort that out, then we have to, make sure that it always pays to work. And that's what that whole universal credit thing's been about, which is now speeding through very quickly. In a year's time, every place will have the opportunity, every job centre will be using the universal credit. That's designed to make sure, as you work like an extra hour, you don't then suddenly drop off a cliff in terms of the amount of support that you can get through the benefits system. So that's kind of part of the solution. And I don't want to sort of pretend, Valerie, that it's sort of simple, I've got some magic solution, other than let's build a stronger, healthier economy. As I say every time I come on, Sheila, we've got the fastest growing economy in the Western world at the moment. We've got to carry on doing that, otherwise we won't be able to fix these problems.
We've also got, we learned today, increasing numbers, significantly increasing numbers of 0 hours contracts, 1.8 million people working on 0 hours contracts. We don't want that for a few people that works, but for many it does not, and for many employers it doesn't.
I saw that survey and I actually took the time to kind of have a read of it and discovered that the survey had been taken in the month of August, where actually you get a lot more temporary work and a lot more temporary contracts. So we should be careful kind of jumping to conclusions. 0-hour contracts aren't by definition bad. Sometimes I speak to, for example, people who say, I'm on one, but I want to be on one. I've spoken to charities who say they couldn't function without them. Where they're bad and where we're going to outlaw them, where we are outlawing them, is where people say, you're on 0 hour. By the way, you can't go and take a job somewhere else. That is outrageous. You can't have no guaranteed hours and then tell people they can't work anywhere else. And that's absolutely going to... We've legislated to end that.
Valerie, thank you for your call. Paul, very quickly before we go to the news headlines at 3:30. Paul's call from Stoke. Hi, Paul.
Hi there. The question I want to ask you, Mr. Shapps, is do you think Boris Johnson would be a great Conservative leader at some point in the future?
Well, I think he's been a great London mayor, I'll give you that, and I think he's got a great future as a very leading light cabinet minister with Conservatives. But obviously, you won't be surprised to hear me say this. I really believe that David Cameron, who has been the guy there taking very difficult decisions, getting this country back on track, there's record numbers of jobs that have now been created in this country, for example, more than the rest of Europe put together, net. I think he should be the next Prime Minister after the election. Whether Boris Johnson one day becomes leader or not, I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I do think he's got a lot more to give. What do you think?
Go on, Paul.
I think just have to wait and see. I think he could be a great leader, and as you said, he's a great leader in London, so might just make the country even better, in the future times.
So I love what he's done with London. You see, London's like probably one of the world's few super cities, and I think he's been a fantastic super mayor, and I think he's got great vision and definitely has a big role in the next government.
It was before him.
Yeah, but things like those, I don't know, I think I talked about them before, those London buses that nobody said could be done, too dangerous, you couldn't jump on and off them, it was health and safety, you couldn't design a bus just for one city, and he blew through all of that, made it happen. I think he's got great vision.
Although, for your party as a whole, London's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
We'll wait and see. We've just had 2 terms of a Conservative mayor elected in London. I'm sure next year, because his term's coming to an end, he's standing for Parliament, and then next year there's the mayoral elections, and we will see. I'm sure we'll have very, very good candidates for the Conservative.
Well, on the general election, there's a poll, a YouGov poll for the Times showing the Conservatives trailing Labour by 8 points.
I saw that, but you know what? Boris Johnson was elected in London, and we were trailing at the time as well, I think, if I remember rightly. So, I think London and a mayoral race is slightly different. People are interested in the individual and their ideas and
exactly.
The rest
so you can't lean on
politics,
the Boris factor, can you?
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's right. I don't think sort of Conservative and Labour and all the rest of politics comes into it in quite the same way. And when you come to a national election, again, people are looking for, who has the competent vision to take this country forward. And obviously, I think that is David Cameron, the Conservatives. And it's going to be chaos if we get Ed Miliband in, propped up by the SNP and Alex Salmond.
All right, Conservative MP and Conservative Party Chairman Grant Shapps is here with us for another 15 minutes or so. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. It's 3:31. Let's get the headlines from Rupert Bhatia.
The chair of the Conservative Party has told Sheila that Labour's plan to stop MPs having more than one job is preposterous.
I don't think there's any real room in this country for full-time, professional politicians who've never done anything else in their life. And basically, Ed Miliband's now pushing this line, we must ban every other interest. Well, Ed Miliband's never done anything apart from politics. Who is he to lecture people?
Grant Shapps says it's important that MPs have wide and varied experiences. The Education Secretary's written to the school attended by 3 girls from East London who are believed to have gone to Syria to join the Islamic State group. Nikki Morgan says she knows staff at Bethnal Green Academy are doing everything possible to make sure pupils are in a safe, tolerant environment. The teenagers flew to Istanbul last week before heading to Syria. The chief executive of HSBC has apologised in person to MPs over allegations that the bank's Swiss branch helped wealthy customers dodge tax. Stuart Gulliver's been appearing before the Treasury Select Committee. And firefighters across England are on strike this afternoon in a long-running row with the government over pensions and terms and conditions. Thousands are taking part in a rally in Westminster. LBC weather, a mainly dry afternoon in London and the southeast, becoming cloudy and breezy later, a high of 11 Celsius. Some showers in northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, mostly dry in Wales. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Rupert Bhatia.
Leading Britain's conversation with Shelagh Fogarty. Weekday afternoons from 1 on LBC.
I was like most blokes, ballroom dancing, you're having a laugh. But the missus watched it on the telly, and after a wee bit of ear bending, I've given it a bash. Now I'm hooked. Mind you, all this gear doesn't come cheap. Still, Aviva saved me a few quid on my car insurance. Quality rhinestones didn't grow on trees,
5-star car insurance from just £185, direct from Aviva. 10% of new customers paid £185 for standard cover August to October 2014, price to individual circumstances.
I know. The state pension is changing.
I know. How much you get will still depend on your national insurance record. And it's being made clearer to help me understand.
I know. I'll be able to see how much I'm likely to receive and understand what I can do to improve my state pension.
I know. If you reach state pension age on or after the 6th of April 2016, you'll be part of the new scheme.
Make sure you know the facts about the new state pension. Visit gov.uk/yourstatepension for more information.
So sorry.
Make sure you get a perfectly balanced performance. Michelin tyres bring safety, longevity and fuel efficiency factors together in one tyre. And throughout February, we at QuickFit are offering 25% off them. So for all-round total performance, ask for Michelin tyres at any of our quick fit centres today. Offer available in-store only. Terms and conditions apply.
The Wickes sale must end Monday, 2nd of March. So get your projects moving. With 50% off selected tiles, like our Twilight Grey matte porcelain floor tiles. Was $17.99 per metre squared, now $8.99 per metre squared. And easy ways to shop, like our free 3-hour click and collect service. Visit Wickes online or in-store today and get your projects off to a flying start. It's got our name on it. Wickes. For T's and C's, visit wickes.co.uk.
You're only one person. So if you want to tell millions of people all the great things about your business instantly, you're going to need a megaphone and be able to travel at the speed of light. Unless we get your customers to do it for you. Reputation.com will gather positive feedback from your happy customers and amplify it. To find out more about how we can help manage, improve and protect your brand's image online, visit Reputation.com.
Worrying about your kids is just part of being a parent. Will they do well in school? Will they come home safe? Will they ever develop a decent taste in music? But when it comes to their driving, Ingenie encourage young people to drive safely with discounts on their car insurance. So your only worries are their dress sense, choice of partner, any piercings or tattoos, whether they eat enough.
Ingenie customers can save up to 21% on their car insurance just for driving well. See how much you could save at Ingenie.com. Ingenie, insurance for 17 to 25s. Drive well, pay less.
Shelagh Fogarty on LBC.
I'm joined by Grant Shapps, the Conservative Party Chairman and MP for Welwyn Hatfield. Your call's still coming in. That's great. 0345 606 0973. We'll hear from Keith in Stoke Newington in just a second. I just wanted to ask you about the 3 girls from London who have gone to Syria, it seems, certainly Turkey, and there is now a belief that they have been smuggled into Syria. Their local MP, Rashinara Ali, asked a question in Prime Minister's Question today of the Prime Minister about efforts both to get them back and also to prevent this kind of thing from happening. Are you confident that enough is being done? It's such an across the board effort that's required, isn't it?
Absolutely, and by the way, that effort's way beyond government as well. Obviously, it needs to go to sort of community leaders, parents who will be very concerned about it, and the rest of it. I think the Prime Minister was sort of reassuring in his comments, in as much as he quashed one of the things, which is that the police hadn't immediately acted upon it, which they apparently had. But he has actually also asked the Home Secretary, as I understand it, and the Transport Secretary to look at this. I can tell you that we've obviously discussed the case in government, because you want to make sure you are closing every possible door to something like this happening. It is a very shocking image as well when you see those 3 girls in the CCTV footage, and that's still, apparently on their way. So government's going to do absolutely everything possible. There's no magical wand to these things. We have to work with communities to stop people being brainwashed into these types of activities.
All the more reason as well why a strong intelligence and security committee is needed. We know that Sir Malcolm Rifkin has stepped down as the chair of that. It will need a replacement quickly, won't it? And I know there's process.
There's process, and the committee themselves are the people who'll work on it with Parliament. But yeah, I mean, very important position. Actually, it's one of the reasons it was good that he made that decision very quickly.
Any ideas of either an individual or the type, or would you not even go there?
I don't, and actually I think it's the same in the case of this committee, but I may be wrong. There's quite a lot of consultation. Obviously, some of the wider select committees, the decisions made by Parliament itself, but there are many discussions.
Because this one isn't just MPs, it's worth making that distinction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Keith is called from Stoke Newington. Hi, Keith.
Hi, Shirley, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks. What's the point or question you wanted to make?
Conversation. Well, I wanted to ask Graham that legal aid situation, that by this government removing legal aid, don't you think, or would you agree, that it has deprived Joe Blow in the street access to the court, which has compromised Article 39 and 40 of Magna Carta, and it's compromised the average man's common law right to access to the court, and it's given wealthy companies who can afford a lot of crooked barristers and being able to get control of the courts to protect their interests against the consumer, who now doesn't have any access to redress for their complaints.
Hi, it's actually Grant.
Sorry,
that's right, no worries. So look, I don't think that. I don't think it's true that there is no access to legal aid. If that were the case, we wouldn't still be spending hundreds of millions of pounds on legal aid. So let's be clear, it does still exist. But you're right to say that it's been restricted in a number of different areas for the simple reason that we'd ended up with more legal aid in this country than any other developed nation in the world. We were spending vastly more. The system had seemingly got out of control. You'd see lots of incidents where people were claiming legal aid to fight a hopeless case that everyone knew in the end would be lost, but the legal aid bill would rack up for the taxpayer in the meantime. So, look, these things are always a balance, but I do think it's important to make sure that taxpayers' money is being spent properly, and our legal aid bill is still much higher than most other developed nations.
Keith, brief response, because you have to go in 5 minutes, I know, so I want to get a few more calls in.
Yeah, but that's fair enough. But the point of the legal aid, most people don't get a chance. I mean, if you go for legal aid, it is assessed by legal aid to see whether you have a claim or not before you're granted the application. But the point is, the law is the fundamental of of our society, and just about Western society. And by people not being able to access it freely, then it compromises that. But the point I want to make is that why there's no need to pay barristers, 200, 300, 500, or even £1,000 an hour, when the government could change the system by having a panel of solicitors available at a fixed rate, like the NHS employ doctors.
Okay, just briefly on that.
Yeah, I'll return to the main point, which is we had somehow ended up with a legal aid budget in this country, which was literally running out of control, not comparative with any other legal system, even though we don't have the most expensive legal system in the world. America's much more expensive, for example. We ended up disproportionately spending so much on legal aid. But I will take your points and speak to Chris Grayling, Keith, who's the Justice Secretary. I'm seeing him later in the House of Commons, so I will raise your points with him, but I think he will say, let's have a fair system, but it's got to be fair to the taxpayer as well, and hopeless cases can't simply be pursued under legal aid forever.
People might be, Keith, thank you for your call, but just briefly on this before we hear from Alison, people might be surprised to know that the areas of civil law where legal aid has been removed include things like forced marriage, child abduction, domestic violence.
Well, we've been very careful to make sure that areas where people would be the most vulnerable, some of which may include those I don't have all the details with me, but would still be protected, whilst making sure that, for example, in a hopeless asylum case, which has been round the houses time and time again, you can't carry on using legal aid to spend money that, frankly, some taxpayers got to pay for when everyone knows that this case has already come to an end, it's been argued on some technicality, and actually, frankly, that's not acceptable, and that's the type of thing.
But it's important. I mean, if you can't tell us now, it would be important to let us know one way or another how you differentiate between vulnerable people in domestic violence and people
I'll tell you what I'll do. Well, I will go back from here. I will post up online all of our reforms to legal aid with the detail, and I'll tweet to it with you and your name in it, and anyone who's interested
and
can look at
please include
LBC.
LBC. I'm not responsible
and
for anything.
And you can see
here.
all of the detail right down into the kind of intricacies of which areas are still available.
Good, because it'll be useful for me, full stop, as a journalist, but it would be good for listeners to know, because there's a lot of areas here where there are where it's been removed: domestic violence, forced marriage, child abduction, mental health cases, not all obviously, but all asylum cases, debt and housing matters where someone's home is at immediate risk. These are fundamental.
Okay, but let's not just, because the way you're saying that makes it sound like we've removed all legal aid, etc. Our legal aid bill is still much bigger than most other countries, and I'll give you some stats on that as well, so you can see the full picture, which is much, much more balanced than that sounds.
Get tweeting on that one as soon as you possibly can. Alison in Crawley. Hello, Alison.
Hi. I was just ringing in because when Grant started out, I just thought, I know there's an election coming, but I just can't stand this for weeks. It's this putting down of, Miliband couldn't possibly, he's never done anything else, he's putting down business, what have you. Just get to the point and answer the question, because quite frankly, I don't think David Cameron bears very close scrutiny on that, and I'm not interested anyway. It's just incredibly, incredibly tiresome. And I would think if you're going to knock, throw stones around like that from your glass house, that you ought to really think about people like Andrew Lansley, who had links to private health companies, which I would say was a conflict of interest, and no experience of the health service, but it didn't seem to stop him doing what was a catastrophic top-down reorganisation of the health service against everything that David Cameron had promised in the first place.
Well, Alison, let me respond.
Let me just get in quickly here. Simple as this. You have to get business and understand how business operates, because there's only businesses that create jobs in this country. So for every single person listening to this programme who's in a job, the 1.85 million more people who have jobs now than at the last election, they will understand you can only have a job if someone gets into business, if that business is successful, if you make it easier for businesses, not harder, to operate in this country. And the only reason I'm at all critical of Ed Miliband on all of this is he just doesn't seem to understand that business is the only thing which creates jobs and prosperity for families in this country. And that is where I aim my attack. You cannot make this country recover and be wealthy and provide NHS and welfare and all the other things we've been talking about today unless you have a successful economy in the first place. And that means making sure business can operate.
Briefly, Alison.
You are the housing minister?
I was the housing minister.
You were the housing minister. Yes, people have jobs. My son has a job, has a very responsible job, caring for people in London, caring for people who have severe autism. It's an extremely challenging job for which he's paid extremely poorly, for which he can barely afford to live in London. I would say the accommodation in which he lives is appalling, absolutely appalling, and something we should all be ashamed of. So really, if we're going to start just by throwing stones, just answer the questions. I don't think you've got a great record on the NHS. I don't think you've got a great record on the recovery. And people out there in low-paid jobs don't think...
But Alison, to be fair, to be absolutely fine, at least we put more resources into the NHS by 4% more in real terms. At least we have made sure that many, many more jobs have been created, more of the workforce, more of the populations in work in this country than at any time on record. So we have actually managed to have an environment where jobs are created. But
before you finish that point, do you accept, and I know you have to go, but do you accept that there are concerns that too much of that work is low paid, too much of that work is temporary, and people want it to be permanent,
what you
too much of it is 0 hours contracts?
You absolutely want to leave more money in people's pockets, which is why we've taken the tax rate at which you pay tax from £6,475, where you would have started paying tax, to £10,500. If we're re-elected, you won't pay tax to £12,500.
Yes, but you can't wave those
That puts money in people's pockets, right?
You can't wave those pom-poms too high just yet, can you?
No, it's a fragile recovery. That's why we want to win the election in 71 days and finish off the job.
OK, thanks for coming in again. Thanks for staying a little bit longer. And thank you, Alison and Crawley, and to everybody else who called as well. Sorry we couldn't get to more of them. We'll try and make him stay for an hour one day, and then we'll get lots more calls in. Thanks very much indeed to all of you. Grant Shapps, Conservative Party Chairman, MP for Welwyn Hatfield, many thanks as well. Let's get some travel news now.
I'm Joanne Webb in the LBC Travel Centre on the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25. Clockwise, very busy from junction 18 at Chorleywood to 19 at Watford after a lorry broke down earlier. On this Surrey stretch of the M23, very busy in both directions between junctions 9 at Gatwick and the M25. That's because the emergency roadworks still taking place after that car overturned earlier this morning. In London, there are delays northbound to the Blackwall Tunnel after a car broke down earlier. There's a queue from the Woolwich Road flyover. And in central London, there are delays at Parliament Square, and that's because of the demonstration taking place by the Fire Brigade Union. Various restrictions on the square itself. In Staffordshire, the M6 is very